Welcome to the NBA DFS Build, a show dedicated to breaking down each DraftKings slate to help you build the best lineups possible. I am Kevin Roberts, joined by Taylor Smith, and we will be going game by game, highlighting the top plays for the night for the 6-game slate on Monday, February 5th. Do us a favor and like this video below if we help you in any way. And if you want to see more of these videos, please subscribe to our channel, the DFS Build, to get alerted for future episodes. You also can find us on Spotify if you don't want to watch a video. This video is also sponsored by DFS Hero, which has a versatile lineup optimizer and plenty of features that can help you score GPP takedown. Right now, you can get 15% off when you sign up using our link, which you can find below in the video description. As for today, we have a nice 6-game slate, so let's get right to it. Really appealing game in theory, if the game stays close, with the Lakers at Charlotte. The Lakers are 12.5-point favorites with a 227 total. We do not have official news yet on LeBron James and Anthony Davis. I would imagine just because it's the Hornets, there's a possibility one or both sit, but they've had Q tags all season long and they tend to play. As far as finality goes, Jared Vanderbilt is out, and obviously Cam Reddish and Gabe Vincent are still out. On the Charlotte side, LaMelo Ball is out, along with Mark Williams, Gordon Hayward, Kyle Lowry. And Cody Martin is also iffy for this. Looks like he is questionable. So that is the injury report for the Lakers and Hornets. Taylor, who are you liking on the LA side?
Well, the spread kind of implies that these guys are playing. It's
Right.
12.5. So can't imagine. I mean, I guess one of them could sit. Charlotte is that bad. But I anticipate they'll play. Davis for under 10K is just really standing out. I mean, Charlotte gets smoked by centers every night. AD's been a little pedestrian lately, perhaps dealing with that Achilles injury or whatever it is. But this is about as good of a get-right spot as you can find, and he's underpriced. So happy to go there. LeBron, 10K flat, looks fine. AD's had the higher ceiling all season. I think, prefer AD. But there may be a pretty big ownership gulf between them. So if you want to play that angle, I get the James side of it too. Prince for 4K looks fine. Not terrible, not great. He's kind of relying on his shooting, of course, but the minute should be there for him. And that's probably it. I think Rui started the last game, but with the stars in, there's not really a lot of usage for him.
Yeah, I agree across the board here. Obviously, Anthony Davis looks amazing. He's got a great 53-point projection here. I believe he's got the second best projection, only behind Luka on this slate. Like you kind of alluded to, he is garnering ownership, almost 20% owned at the moment. I'd imagine that inflates even with the possible blowout. 31% boom rating on the DFS Hero Optimizer. So the system likes him quite a bit too. It's a smash matchup against the Hornets. I'm with you, though, on the logic of LeBron being an interesting leverage play there. He's only $100 more. He only projects 2 points fewer, and he's not going to be nearly his own. So LeBron is a little interesting, although I agree the Brow is the best play on that team and one of the best plays in the entire slate. All right, kicking it over to the Hornets side, you have the injuries we talked about. LaMelo Ball is out. Obviously, that opens up a lot of usage, and then you have a possible pump play like Ish Smith. How are you feeling about the Charlotte side?
Good about Bridges and Brandon Miller. Usage is going to be sky high for both. Miller's been better than Bridges lately, but 8-2, I don't think is still too much to pay for Miles Bridges, who plays like 40 minutes a night. Nick Richards, kind of always the same play. Looks pretty good. Under 6K. Minutes are fine for him. I was looking at the minutes from yesterday. Ish and Nick Smith both around 25 minutes with Cody Martin out. Can't feel great about Ish Smith, honestly, in 2024, but cheap and good start. So unfortunately, he will be in play again tonight if Cody Martin sits.
Yeah, I think if Cody is out, Ish becomes a lot more appealing, and he feels almost like a priority for me here. If Cody is in, I wouldn't flirt with it just because, I mean, they're playing Leaky Black, Bryce McGowan, so they're Nick Smith. Like, they're just spreading out these minutes. The only guys, like you said, you can really trust are Bridges, Miller, Richards, and maybe PJ Washington off the bench. Those four guys that I just rattled off all look totally fine. If this game stays close, they are possible smash plays. if you want to factor in recency bias into this slate, the 17% ownership projection for Miles Bridges suddenly feels very high then, because you would think after 2 straight, pedestrian games out of him, people would kind of get away from him, and then you throw on the 12-point spread even more so. So if his ownership starts dipping down, Miles Bridges looks very, very interesting to me. Moving on here, we got the Kings and Cavs with a much closer game, 3.5-point spread with the Cavs at home as the favorites. Nice 233.5 total. There is some news of note for this game. It is Darius Garland is questionable, and I believe the same can be said of Jarrett Allen. Yep, they are both questionable, which that's pretty massive. Obviously, those guys being out would open it up for Evan Mobley if his minute limit gets lifted whatsoever. Spido would look awesome. So yeah, but starting with the Kings side, because they're the visitors here, who's standing out for you?
It's not a really spot, of course. Tough matchup on the road. Sabonis is not overpriced, but the matchup's just really brutal. Fox for 8-3 is interesting, but he's been pretty scoring dependent lately. So that's a bit alarming for him. The one that stands out is Malik Monk for 5-4. We've seen the minutes up for him lately. That's kind of a seesaw with him and Herter, but if you can ride the Monk wave at what should be limited ownership, I think there's a lot of upside there for 5-4, even in a subpar spot.
Yeah, that's going to be tough because he's smashed in 2 straight games. You can just know that's coming down at some point, and it easily could be tonight. It just feels like it's a bit of a seesaw there with Herter and Monk and maybe even Keegan Murray to some degree. It's pretty dicey. Fox is a nice price. I do like De'Aaron Fox at that price. We'll note that Sabonis has a 23% boom rating and is projecting to not be owned at all. So he's a very interesting GPP pivot away from what is looking like a popular Anthony Davis. It doesn't take much for you to say, oh, that game is probably going to blow out. Let's fade Brow and go get Sabonis at no ownership. And then suddenly Jarrett Allen is out, and that matchup doesn't look quite as daunting for Sabonis. So yeah, for GPPs, he's pretty interesting. Heading over to the Cleveland side, obviously I mentioned Spida stands out quite a bit if Garland is indeed out. He's not showing an injury tag here in DFS Hero, so I'm not sure if that's updated or not. I'm still seeing it over on DraftKings, though. Just keep an eye on it, and obviously the status of Jarrett Allen. But, heading over with the Cavs here, who do you like?
It's really just Mitchell. If Garland's out, he has a super high ceiling. Even if Garland's in, he does. Pretty big pace-up spot for them. Allen under 8K is somewhat interesting, but I'm a little alarmed that he's questionable, of course. We did see Mobley go off in the last game, but he still only saw 23 minutes. So limited range of outcomes, I think, there. That feels like a chase. And ditto for Garland. He's just still limited, so I don't really see the merit to getting to him if he goes.
Yeah, Evan Mobley shot 73%. So, that's like hyper efficient. I don't think we can keep banking on that if he's only going to play 24 minutes.
I guess we can look at LeVert if Garland is out, perhaps, or Sam Merrill again, down to 3-3.
Maybe even Strus as a GPP play, but LeVert is what stands out for sure. You never like to play Strus. He's basically, is he hitting his shots or isn't he, right? Yeah, Merrill at 3-3, another good point. So yeah, if Garland is out, I think LeVert and Merrill actually pop quite a bit here. And obviously keep an eye on Jarrett Allen, but I don't know if that would move the needle for me that much.
It would be like Dean Wade. So
no. So yeah, I'd mostly just keep an eye on the Garland news. All right, moving on. Dallas and Philadelphia. This game is in Philly. It's got a 3.5-point spread with the Mavs as the road favorites and a very, very nice 244 total. Obviously, Joel Embiid is out. Let's take a quick look here. Who else? Tobias Harris is questionable. That is big. DeAnthony Melton and Nicholas Batum remain out as well. And for Dallas, we have Kyrie in, Dante Exum, and Derek Lively out. So there are some injuries to keep an eye on here. Starting with Dallas, though. Kyrie being in probably lowers Luka's ceiling, but it's still Luka. How are you feeling about paying up for Luka on the slate? Do you feel he's necessary, and are there any other Mavs that you're liking?
Not like fully necessary, just because we have Davis there. Maybe Mitchell pops a little bit, but I'm still getting to him a lot. He's just playing 40 plus every single night. Maybe not with Kyrie in, but I think the matchup's a good one without Joel in there protecting the paint. It's hard to get away from him. there should be enough value to get to him. So I do still think he's pretty close to a priority. If you're not playing him, I do think Kyrie for 8.5 is really good because minutes should be fine. He's been dealing with a thumb. So, 35 minutes I don't think is too much to ask. And he's underpriced. So if you're not playing Doncic, I think Kyrie is a really good pivot.
Yeah, Kyrie is definitely underpriced. I think Kyrie would have been a smash play if Luka would have been out. He had an ankle issue, but he is going to play. Luka is not ever going to feel overpriced, but with Kyrie back, I just don't really envision him having the ceiling that you absolutely need. So I'm never going to tell you to fade Luka, but he's just not the outstanding play. He has his projection's great, and he has a 44% boom rating. But he just doesn't stand out to me like he normally would, especially when you have Spida and Brow and Sabonis. There are pretty good guys here that we can go to. And on the other side of this game, Tyrese Maxey with the offense all to himself. So I don't think he's absolutely necessary personally. I will note for the value, Maxi Kleba is in. So I guess we can go back to him at 4.1K. He crushed in his last game, I think, even though he left with an injury. And I was stuck playing Rashawn Holmes, who did not even fucking play. He had the DNP. By the way, my lineup was so good that I still cashed with a fucking 0. So that was good and also super annoying. If I would have had Kleba in there, I think that would have been like 34 extra points. I would have had a pretty nice night. So that's frustrating. But yeah, whoever starts for the Mavs there, whether it be Kleba, Dwight Powell, maybe they go small with Derek Jones. I don't know. But whoever starts would pop as value. Personally, not looking at any of the other values Dallas with Kyrie back, though. Moving over to the Philly side of things, like I said, Tobias Harris is questionable. That's pretty key because that would open up some value on the Philly side and make Tyrese Maxey a borderline core play. For me, it's a core play if Tobias is out, and I like Maxey anyways. How are you feeling about the Sixers?
I agree with that. I do think Tobias is a priority if he's in for me. Don't think the minutes should be an issue. I think he's dealing with an illness, so that's always a little bit concerning. But if he's good to go, I can just assume he's good to play full allotment of minutes, and he's too cheap for the role without Embiid. So happy to get there in the mid-range. Him being out, like you said, clears Maxey, but Maxey is good either way. I guess if Harris is out, we're looking at a lot of Oubre, which is rarely fun. And he's not even that cheap, but he will look a lot better at 6.5. Otherwise, I'm not dealing with Cork Maz or Marcus Morris or Daniel House on this slate. So it's really just if Tobias is out, then a lot of Maxey and Oubre. And Paul Reed looks okay in the mid-range too, just playing decent minutes with Embiid out.
Yeah, I agree. I think Reed is fine. I don't think he's necessarily a priority just because we can't really trust what they're going to do with that rotation between him and Mohamed Bamba and just whatever other bigs they're going to rotate in there. They don't really have a lot of bigs, but they end up going small a little bit too. But Tobias Harris being out would make Reed pop a bit more, I would imagine.
It is a good matchup too with no Lively. Like Dallas doesn't really have centers that protect the paint, so I do like Reed a little bit if he's in, or if Tobias is in. Yeah.
I think he's totally viable either way. But if Tobias is out, I like him a lot. I hope Tobias is in because I like Tobias, and I kind of feel like if Tobias is in, that ownership on Maxey kind of comes down. So, and if Tobias is out, Maxey is going to be pretty owned. He's just too cheap at 9.1K. All right, moving on here. We got the Clippers and the Hawks. This is also a candidate for the top game of the night. 243.5 total, and it's only a 4-point spread with the Clippers as road favorites. The Hawks just go really fast, and they play zero defense. So across the board, the Clippers look really, really good here. Zubac is questionable to play, so he could be back and take away that crappy Clippers value, that center value that we don't want anyways. And on the other side, we have, let's see, I accidentally clicked the wrong team. Sadiq Bey is questionable. Clint Capella out, which makes a Kongu a core play, I would say. And DeAndre Hunter is also questionable. So Bey and Hunter being out would elevate some value for the Hawks. But the only real glean I have for Atlanta for me right away is going to be a Kongu being a smash play at that price. Starting with the Clippers, though, who stands out?
Yeah, I thought I would be getting to more of like Kawhi and Harden just because Atlanta is such a good spot. and they're both under 9, so that's pretty interesting. I would like to get to them more than I am. It's just kind of a matter of, like, Luka and AD are up there. They look like priorities. Tobias in the mid-range. These guys kind of get squeezed, but they are great. If they're going to be lower owned, they're great lower owned pivots because the matchup's so good. Even on a back-to-back, Paul George still limited, so not really going there. Zubac played last night, 18 minutes. If he's out, I think Plum playable because mana against big is already bad, and now Capella's out. Not dying to play Plumlee, but I do think he's pretty good at low ownership.
Yeah, I actually would go one step further here. I absolutely love this as a game stack. It's not garnering the ownership it should be. It's because you have Luka and Brow up top. I think at this point, getting one of those Clippers guys, Leonard or Harden. I don't want to play with Paul George. Those minutes are just too wonky for me. Or both Leonard and Harden, and maybe even come back on the other side with Trey and Okongwu. That's very interesting to me. If you're running out multiple lamps, I would definitely get to a game stack like that. And maybe even for single entries, that's pretty interesting. If you're going to have ownership flock to a game with a 12.5 point spread and a 12K Luka with Kyrie back, maybe just bet on variance being in your favor. And all these unowned guys who project pretty well in quite arguably the best DFS environment of the night. That's interesting. So, yeah, I'm with you, though. It's probably just Leonard or Harden. You can always look at Norm Powell at 5K. He has a pretty good little bit of usage there, and he's not going to be owned. So, all right. So, on the other side, Hawks, Trey Young is going to be your standout. I don't know what I did there. As far as projection goes, pushing for 50 fantasy points with a 21% boom rating, carrying no ownership despite just wrecking lately. 48, 65, 52, 54, 55. That's his fantasy points in his last 5 games. He is crushing. So how do you feel about Trey? I'm assuming you're with me on locking Okongwu here, not getting cute. And do you like any other Hawks?
Yeah, Okongwu is obviously a great play. He's going to be the most popular player on the slate, but doesn't feel like bad chalk, especially since you can play him at power forward. But I do like Bruno Fernando as 3K, like the backup. The Hawks don't give Okongwu 40 minutes. If he starts, he's going to play 30-ish probably. So Fernando's cheap enough and good enough per minute to get there if you're not playing Okongwu. I do think that's viable in tournaments for sure. If one of the questionable guys is out, I guess Bogdanovic is the one that benefits the most. If both are out, he's going to play a ton by default. He's only 5'9". I think that looks pretty good. And I'm not really on Trey Young. I think Mitchell and LeBron and Luka, Kyrie Irving, Tyrese Maxey. Like, there are so many good, expensive guards. Trey is a good pivot, but I can't imagine all those guys being so popular that Trey's like really that high on the list of priorities. So I get it, but probably not going there too much. And then Murray, I guess there could be usage to go around for him too. Now under 8K. Don't think that's the worst thing, but also not a priority for me.
Yeah, the way this slate is shaping up, I kind of disagree as far as potential priorities. The fact that Trey is going to be so unowned and he projects pretty well, he's going to be very, very appealing to me. It's going to be hard to ignore that. I'm locking in Okongwu, not thinking twice. Bruno Fernando is a good point out. It's only 3.K there. Yeah, he'll get the backup center minutes. I don't know how much time that amounts to. I don't know how productive he's actually going to be because it's not like the Clippers are a soft matchup inside. But for 3K flat, you could do worse probably. All right, moving on to the Warriors and Nets in Brooklyn. The Warriors are 1-point favorites with a 238.5 spread. The Warriors, I don't think they're at full strength here. No, Chris Paul remains out. Andrew Wiggins and Dario Saric are both questionable. So how are you feeling about Golden State against the Nets?
Yeah, Pajimski kind of looks like a priority. Minutes have been up lately. If Wiggins is out, there's more playing time to go around. He's going to be pretty popular, but the minutes have been way up and he's still cheap. So I do get it. Awesome spot for Curry. Like, that's another guard that I think gets you over Trey Young. Brooklyn, not a good defense against 3-pointers. I think they allow the 5th highest percentage. So Curry should smash, at least in the scoring department. This is one of the few times where he actually looks pretty good to me. Draymond and Kuminga, fine. I don't think they're overpriced or underpriced. And I guess Klay Thompson, if Wiggins is out, would look a little better, but rarely get to him as any kind of priority.
Yeah, I agree across the board here. Nothing major to add. I will say Kuminga being under-owned here is worth pointing out. Looks like he's only going to get about 7% ownership here. And it's a really good spot. So I think at 7K flat, I might get a little bit more Kuminga than the Field's getting. Over on the Nets side, we have Dennis Smith Jr. coming back. Ben Simmons is out. De'Aaron Sharp is out. Dorian Finney-Smith is out. So nothing major there, but there could be some extra rotational minutes. We have seen Lonnie Walker crush with enhanced minutes lately. And then there's a lot of good value here, and the system is loving it. We have multiple guys with 20+% boom rating on the DFS Hero optimizer, and starting up top, you got Claxton with a 39-point projection here and a 30% boom rating. So system loves Nets. The Nets are carrying ownership. How do you feel about Brooklyn?
Yeah, I think I agree. Pretty high total, tight spread in this game. Simmons being out does open up opportunities for guys like Walker. Perhaps Spencer Dinwiddie. Cam Johnson's only 5K. They're all cheap. Cam Thomas in a starting role, scoring upside for him. Not concerned with the matchup. So as of now, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of my highest owned 7 players are Nets. Lonnie Walker, Cam Johnson, Spencer Dinwiddie, and Cam Thomas. So
that has to feel good.
Even Mikal Bridges for 7-2, I think, is pretty good because he just has a huge role, plays a ton of minutes. He and Claxton, Dennis Smith Jr. are all among my highest owned players as well. So, and Royce O'Neal's even kind of up there. So this is it's going to be great. We're going to be playing a lot of Nets tonight.
What could go wrong? Yeah, I would say everybody here is on the table, but I would probably gravitate mostly towards the value. Lonnie, Dinwiddie, Cam Johnson. Those are the guys I'm looking at just because I just feel like there's not a lot of amazing value on this slate, and they're in a good spot, and they provide it. So Lonnie Walker never feels great, but 4K Lonnie Walker feels okay. And like I said, the system loves these guys, and it's a good matchup. Should be a fun game. So I'm with you. I hope I don't pick the wrong Nets tonight. Last game of the night should be an island game that gets cut off this slate because it is an 11-point spread with a 230.5 total, and we have some questionable bodies over here. So it's just going to be a bit of a nightmare to project these things. RJ Barrett is out. Jonte Porter is out. But everybody else looks to be in for the Raptors, although I don't know if I would guarantee that. I would not be surprised if more news trickled down just because they were involved in a double overtime game last night?
Something crazy.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was at least overtime. I think it was double overtime with the Thunder. So they should be fatigued. And if they are, there could be guys having limits. There could be guys not starting. So there could be value here. At the same time, some of these guys look pretty good. On the other side, for the Pels, Zion is questionable like always. Herbert Jones is questionable, and Larry Nance is questionable. Value in mid-range plays to open up on that side too. So starting with Toronto, who stands out for you?
Really no one. Not a good matchup. Like you said, overtime, back-to-back, injured RJ Barrett. So I guess Bruce Brown will start again, but not super psyched about that. Trent is cheap. Pirtle played a lot last night, but he was limited in the first game back, so I'm not sure what to expect from him. Yeah, this might be one of my teams that I kind of just ignore because I'm not seeing much stands out.
Well, Pirtle did play 33 minutes last night. So I don't know if that ends up being one of those guys where Toronto takes it easy on him and cuts his minutes back down or sits him altogether. But if he's going to push for anywhere close to that, 6K is probably too cheap for Pirtle here. So I do have my eye on him a little bit. His projection's okay. He's not projecting for ownership at all. Probably not going to get to Scotty Barnes, but Emmanuel quickly at 7K flat looks a little bit interesting with Barrett out. The guy that I'd really be looking at is value with Gary Trent. If he somehow ends up starting here, but even if he doesn't, 4.8 off the bench, he's just going to let it fly. So
he's been starting, so he should continue to, I would imagine.
So at 4.8, he's a fine value to look at. And like you said, Bruce Brown is also okay. I agree, though, not anybody who looks like a flat-out priority. On the other side, you have the Pels. Zion crushed in his last game. What did he do? He just went off, and I faded him, and you touted him, too. And in one of our videos, you touted him. You said he could play, and I was like, nah, 52 fantasy points, so I could just eat crow. So, I mean, Pirtle being back does hurt the upside here a little bit, in my opinion. But if Zion plays at 7.5, that's pretty cheap as a hammer play. And if he's out, I mean, you got JV, McCollum, and Ingram all looking pretty interesting too. Plus all the value with like Trey Murphy. So for you, who stands out for the Pels?
As of now, Larry Nance, if he's in, he's only 3-2. Should see around 20 minutes off the bench if he's good to go. I think you can do worse since he's just basically free. If Williamson's out, obviously we're looking at like Valanciunas a little more. Herb Jones being out would create value with, I guess, Trey Murphy and Dyson Daniels perhaps, but not too into that. I guess Murphy's fine to go back to the well with. But yeah, like you said, if Zion's out, then Valanciunas, McCollum, and Ingram are the ones that look a little bit better. I'd feel better about Valanciunas if Nance is out, of course, because Nance tends to eat into Joe Val's minutes.
Yeah, if Larry and Zion are both out, JV might be a priority play for me at 6.5. That would be tough to pass up. All right, so across the board here, as we wrap things up, highest owned player on the slate projects to be Cameron Johnson. And like you kind of alluded to, the Nets are popping because they're all going to get ownership and they all look good in the system. So as far as high owned players, who would you most be looking to fade on the slate?
I don't think any of that's bad. I suppose Nick Claxton, just because center tends to have plenty of options and you can't play all the Nets, even though they kind of all pop. Kevin Huerter's a guy I see pulling ownership that I'm not super inclined to get to. Monk's just kind of eating into him lately. That's volatile. So if Huerter is going to be popular, I don't mind coming in well under on him.
Yeah, Huerter is volatile in general. So once you start adding his shaky minutes to the equation, then yeah, he starts to get pretty dicey. I agree for the most part that I don't like. This is one of those rare slates where even with the high chalky projections here, nobody screams is like a screaming fade to me. I would be looking at whatever some of the chalky Nets though. If everybody's gonna be on Nets, I would look at some of the highest owned ones. You got Cam, Lonnie, and Cam, two Cams and Lonnie. They're within the top 4 projected most owned guys. So I would definitely look to fade one or two of those guys and get instant leverage right there. All right, as far as boom rating here, these are the guys that are looking the best in the system. Luka is the number 1 by far. Are you, like, if you're doing a single entry, are you prioritizing Luka? And how do you feel about fading him on this slate?
I think he's fadeable just because, like we talked about, AD, Curry, Mitchell, Tyrese Maxey potentially. There are a lot of alternatives, and Kyrie back does eat into Luka a little bit. But if I were building one lineup, I would still be inclined to try to cram Luka in. I think there should be enough value to make that happen, even at 12K.
Yeah, it's a lot of value that we shouldn't feel that good about, though. When you start cramming in Bruno Fernando and Larry Nance and Dennis Smith Jr., who, by the way, is projecting for 16% ownership, that feels disgusting. It's like everything is relative to the slate. But like when you start looking at it and like the value you're eating is just so gross, we need to take a step back, and that's when I would personally be like, do I need Luka? If I'm forcing in these like just legit scrubs who could get me 10 fantasy points, is it worth it? He has to get like 80 or 90 for it to be worth it. So I don't really know if I see that happening for myself tonight. I think it's more Maxey, Brow, maybe like I was talking about Trey or the Clippers guys, and you suggested Steph Curry. Those guys all look interesting. You could also play the injury card, and if the news doesn't come out early, look to that Pels game and build around some of those guys, JV, McCollum, Ingram, or even put Zion in and just make it so you can pivot to one of those guys if he's ruled out. So that's probably where I'm at. I'm probably going to fade Luka, and we'll see where that gets me. We'll see what negative backlash I get for that. But that does it for us. Hopefully we'll help you out in some way. If we do, please give this video a like below and also consider subscribing to the channel so you can get alerted for future videos. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the top of the GPPs.